When they talk about, Colonel Albert B. Blanton, his middle name was fucking Bacon. Like, what a man. You
Yeah,
work in bourbon for your
absolutely.
life and your middle name is Bacon? Like,
Absolute legend of a human. Let's talk about Bland. So this is a new segment that we're going to start doing where we're going to pick a bottle and just talk about it a little bit, do a little tell me about, get some facts, some history, and maybe just some personal insight on it. And tonight's segment is going to be Blands, because everybody wants to know about Blands. People who don't even know about bourbon want to ask me about Blands. I get this
right.
question a lot, like, what is Blanton's? Why is it so good? Why is it $200 on the shelf? Like, there's a lot of questions that go around this one. So we'll just go ahead and check off a couple of the basic facts about the product. And then I think from there we can kind of spin into a little bit more opinionated stuff, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, when I got into whiskey years back, we filmed a video about it. It should be out by the time this airs. Check it out. We'll put a link. When John and I are getting back into whiskey, I often found myself being like, oh, I've never heard of that brand. People are talking about it. I wish that there was a quick, easy resource for me to find out about it. It turns out that Wikipedia was out there, but it did a so-so job. So, every week or two, we'll cover a new brand, just kind of get you the info that you need to know. Because there's a lot of opinions going on Instagram, on Twitter, on Reddit, on YouTube about Blands. Here's the quick facts. Here's our quick takes on it. But let's go ahead and dive on into the first single barrel bourbon.
Yeah, so whether it was or was not the actual first single barrel bourbon, it is touted to be the first single barrel bourbon, which is quite exactly what it sounds like. A barrel is selected from the warehouse or rickhouse or whatnot, and bottled as is, as in dumps it out of the barrel and bottle that thing up rather than being batched together with 2, 3, or 4 other barrels or 800 barrels, whatever. So it is what you get out of the barrel, which gives it great variance from one to the other. And these are sort of the honey barrels that were selected initially from the world famous now Warehouse H. The 4th floor center cut is where these were originating from. And they released it in a pretty good year, Jay. Not that I'm biased here, but I think that the very first release of this was in quite a momentous year, if you want to pick up from there.
Yeah, so the year I think John is speaking about, a good vintage. So Blanton's was first released in 1984. It has been distilled by Buffalo Trace. It goes for about $55. You are likely to see it all over the board based on, how much stores get, if they're marking up stuff, if that's kind of their MO. And the way that Blanton's came around was that as, master distiller Elmer T. Lee was getting close to retirement, he was getting ready to launch a new product. They were focusing on trying to capture a different angle of the market, maybe to compete with some other products. And so he remembered his time working under Colonel Albert B. Blanton, who was known to go in, he hosted dignitaries and politicians and business partners, and he would go and pick what they called honey barrels from the warehouse. So he would pick out a special barrel, he would gift it to people he was trying to impress or further business with. And he wanted to go ahead and remember that legacy and bottle a product that was dedicated solely to honey barrels of Buffalo Trace whiskey.
So an interesting fact about Blands is that another company actually, rather than Sazerac, which is the holding company that maintains the Buffalo Trace Distillery's brands, another company entirely, Age International, is the one who owns the Blantons brand and the rights to it, the mash bill, everything. Like, it is their own deal, and they're not even inside the US, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Right. And this is why, if you travel overseas, you might see Blanton's green or gold or black or red, or, there's crazy special editions of Blantons. If you Google Blantons, you're likely to find news stories about some of these crazy collectors of Blantons that have silver plated versions. In the United States, Buffalo Trace is allowed to release the regular Blantons and now Blanton's Gold, but overseas, Age International owns the rest of the brand portfolio. Even though it's all distilled at Buffalo Trace. So that's a kind of a hybrid setup we see from few brands, if any else.
Yeah, quite rare, really. Another thing that I like to think about with this too is that it's just a fun product, right? It's got a very iconic bottle. But if you think back to the history of whiskey, American whiskey in particular in the 80s, it was damn tough to sell premium whiskey. It was damn tough to sell bourbon at all.
Whiskey. Yeah.
Right. So the fact that they're releasing this new product at that time really kind of ties into whiskey today if you think about it, because you've got products like Wild Turkey Kentucky Spirit and Booker's that all released around the same time because the other guys are doing it, right? Like Wild Turkey Kentucky Spirit is something that is a single barrel product, 101 proof. Like they're trying to compete directly with this. It used to come in what I thought was a pretty fancy bottle, even though some people like Jay don't think it's that cool. Speaking of which, it happened to look just like this. I didn't plan to have that right there, but that just worked out great. Anyway, you have premium products hitting the market in like one of the toughest times ever to sell American whiskey. And from it now, here we are where Booker's has gone up in price. It's basically doubled its price. And Blanton's now in independent control liquor states. I mean, people are selling this for over $200 a bottle, which I think is absolutely crazy for any bourbon, let alone, one that has an SRP of $55. But I think that it's really cool history to tie into there. And I think we have some more fun facts about the brand, don't we, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, this is my favorite part. And I have never heard someone hit this. But when they talk about, Colonel Albert B. Blanton, his middle name was fucking Bacon. Like, what a man. You work in bourbon for your life and your middle name is Bacon? Like,
absolute legend of a human.
That's bar trivia if I've ever seen it. And I'm amazed at how many people who have like 20 bottles of Blantons. I'm like, hey, did you know his middle name was Bacon? And they're like, excuse me, what? Like,
yeah. You said what now? Did you say
right.
Bacon?
Like, do you get more like just people are like, holy cow, that is epic. And like Bacon existed then. It wasn't like it was a historic name that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they had bacon in 1984.
Didn't mean crispy pork meat, which is delightful. But so, I mean, anyways, yeah, go ahead.
Well, okay. I just wanted to start to wind the topic down here. This was, I think, a pretty fun thing to do to tell me about. I'll finish out with a thought on the product itself, which for me is that historically I have loved Blanton since the first time I had it. I think that the profile of it has shifted to a point where it is tasting a good amount younger now than it did a bunch of years ago. But I mean, that's happened across the board, right? So long story short for me, I think this is a good product. It is that iconic thing that people outside of the bourbon circles, people that don't listen to a bourbon podcast, know what Blanton's is. For better or worse, it has helped put bourbon on the map. And for that alone, I think it is cool. But it's also a special looking bottle, and you can gift it to somebody. And even if maybe bourbon isn't their thing, they're going to be excited about it. It is a cool bottle that please don't overpay for it. And I mean that for everything. Like, don't go pay $200 because somebody online said it was cool, or because somebody said it was worth XYZ, or just because it's on the shelf at the liquor store for a few $100. You should do a little research because it's probably not worth a few $100. However, if you can get your paws on it for a fair price, or a price that you are okay for a gift, I think it still makes a cool gift.
Right. I'm with you there. Right now, it's really cool to hate Blanton's because it's a sign of like new people getting into whiskey and like, oh, I remember when I was excited about Blanton's. But honestly, Blanton's is a lot to get excited about. I think a lot of people get jaded because they wanted to get it as much as they wanted and they couldn't find it. But it's a cool bottle. It's extremely historical. I can't think of anything that looks like it. It's not my personal favorite flavor profile, but I've never turned down a pour. Overall, I think it's a cool product. It is basically the ideal gift. Like, if you have access to this around MSRP, this is the perfect gift whiskey. Like John mentioned, whether someone is a whiskey veteran, I guarantee you, for every person that has told me like, oh, I hate Blantons and I hate people that chase Blantons, if I was like, oh, I have one, would you like it? They would be like, oh, yeah, yes, I would, because I haven't been able to find one in a while. So, I mean, if someone gave me Blantons, I'd be happy. I just killed one last year for my wedding party at the house. People loved it. It's easy to drink. It's fun. It's got plenty going on. It's a good value at MSRP. I get there's a lot to hate about the hype of hoping to find Blantons and not being able to find it, but it's good whiskey. It's a good bottle. It's a good story. And that's what whiskey's all about to me.
Man, I'm not even going to add to that. I think you nailed it.